Welcome to First Drafts That Glow, a flash fiction writing project featuring me, Avon, or Nails That Glow. It just depends on how you know me online. My hair is like, I'm still fighting with it. I'm trying to keep it out of my face this time. I set up my recording situation so I can see myself. Last episode, I was trying something new, and it was lower resolution and my hair was still a train wreck. I also had a note from somebody who watched the last episode, and I'm wearing lighter eyeshadow, so there you go. What else? Oh yeah, two things really quick, and then we'll dive in. First thing is, this was a story seed given to me by somebody on Twitter who follows my Twitter account, First Drafts Glow. They didn't get back to me about presenting their name in the episode, so I'm just going to put the information on the link below. And there's also somebody else that I've ran across on Twitter who is trans, and they're experiencing a significantly rough time in their life right now. If you could just visit the links below and just read their story, and just, even if it's just words of encouragement or retweeting what they said, I'm sure that would go a long way to help them out. Having said that, let's get into today's episode. Now, the first two episodes, the first one was kind of like a sci-fi adventure. The second one was kind of, I don't know what you would really call it, but it was very much the flavor of like an Outer Limits episode from the 90s. With like political stuff in like the air, and there was some drama and some like harsh things and stuff. Very 90s Outer Limits. I love that show. This one started out as a horror, and then ended up more as like an action thing. I'm not really sure. I said in the last episode, the characters really tell me how things are going to go. I can't control it. I don't know what's going to happen unless I'm working under certain constraints. Like if I get hired, say, to write a comic book and they're like, XYZ needs to be done. Okay, fine. It might take me a little longer to get to the point where it all feels a bit more natural. But, as I'm doing this to entertain myself and you, I just let the characters kind of dictate how things happen. And this went from starting out with the intent of it being horror to more like another Outer Limits kind of thing. Like I might be stuck just a little bit. So the next episode, I'm going to really try to focus on making that a fantasy story, or really focus on making it horror, just to get out of the sci-fi path that I'm in right now. Also, I just want to say I am not trans-masculine, I'm trans-feminine, but my main character is trans-masculine, and I'm basing a lot of their experiences and how they are contextualizing everything based on trans-masculines that I've met over the years. And if I'm getting something wrong or I'm misrepresenting something, feel free to tell me. I mean, we all have to learn about each other somehow. And these things that I mention are things that were mentioned to me in one way or another. But obviously I'm not using verbatim stories or anything like that, but inspirations from, what they've told me, because, there just needs to be more stories with trans and queer people. That just needs to be a thing. Like, we're here. Like, we've always been here. Like, no more erasure. I don't know what I'm getting at here. I'm sure you noticed that I have a brighter light next to me and that the angle's slightly different. I just changed things up a little bit. This is what's called a sad light or a happy light. It is at its lowest setting and it is real bright on camera, so awesome. I don't know if it'll be in another episode, but I was hoping you could see that it kind of looks like a moon, but you can't really tell because of how bright it is, but not changing my mind on that. Alright, so here we go. You ready? Here it is. And I'm likely to screw up because this is my second take. I try to do this one take without rehearsal, but everything kind of went wrong. So, trying it again. So, yeah, I'm still going to mess up a whole bunch because that's why we're here. Alright, here we go. This is Bring It Back, a first Drafts That Glow story by me, Avon. The first sensation was something digging into his wrists. Trying to stretch out wasn't possible. He then noticed he could not move his feet much, and panic filled him when his eyelashes started rubbing against something. There was also something in his mouth. A few attempts to yell and roll to one side or another was exhausting. A new feeling for him to be so run down. The only other time he could recall feeling so sluggish was when he got top surgery. Waking up from the procedure was so surreal, and he had to be reminded a few times why he couldn't just get up and resume his normal routine. Waking up again, he started to panic. He didn't remember going to sleep or passing out. There was little sense of what was happening. A few blue, pale, and yellow lights filling his brain with static and pain. This had to be what his mom had told him migraines felt like. He tried hard to focus on the sensation of wind and the sound of throbbing bass. After a while, his eyes started to see the room. He was strapped to a stone-like table, hands bound together with a connecting strap to his feet. They were also bound together and strapped to the table. His head was able to move, as the chest strap was closer to his elbows. There was a small pile of other straps next to him. Must be what was wrapping my face, he mutters, surprised at the dryness of his mouth. Well, cotton mouth is the least of your worries, Andy. The room looked like it was made of stone or concrete. The lights were bluish, LED-like glow from patterns of lines that seemed to be just underneath the surface. The dimensions of the table, he figured, was about 7 feet long and about 3.5 feet wide. There was a lip around the edge that slightly rose and a groove down the center. I would like to get out now, he yells to the far wall. He struggles against the bindings. Some of the past days start to rise to the surface of his mind. A grim feeling edges towards him as a hiss fills his ears. The sound hits a level that starts to hurt his eyes and make his head throb. Darkness overtakes him before his body relaxes and he loses consciousness. The small drop to the floor and his head bouncing on the stone was not the worst way he had woken up. It was the first months of taking testosterone. From a sound sleep, something woke him, making him jump out of bed, and he ran into the closet door. He never got an answer from his doctor about it. His mom suggested he had a nightmare and wasn't quite awake. Both then and now he hit his head so hard that there were flashes of light that suggested a concussion. Well, no more sleeping, I hope, he says, pushing off the floor. The straps and bindings were all neatly folded and set on the table that he hadn't noticed before. Set on a table that he hadn't noticed before. Why we're here. He makes a note of several canisters and boxes on the table he just had fallen from, lined up on the side very neatly. Grabbing one of the cylinders, he twists and pulls until the end comes loose. Setting it upright, he pulls the top off to a smell of oats and meat. His mouth still feeling dry, he starts to look over the other containers. After opening a few of them, he found 4 boxes that had flip-out straws filled with a milky-like substance that was kind of like almond milk. One box had a rubbing alcohol, or he thought it was. The cylinders were all full of grain or oat and meat that he was not really sure of. He drank one of the milks and consumed 2 of the 8 cylinders. The hunger pangs motivated him more than anything else. If it was not any good to eat, why leave it here? The room had no seams that suggested a door or light switches that would adjust the lights. The table with the straps on it had the look of always having been there, like a solid block seamlessly placed or cut around. None of the typical welding signs he was used to in bicycles and the random seams of trains and buses he would stare at sometimes. Under the straps was a thin fabric backpack, large enough to hold the containers and the straps. He was sure this was telling him to pack and get ready. There was a survival TV show where all the contestants had to start from a room with limited supplies and make it to the end of a giant indoor maze. If this is a TV show setup, then I'm going to sue. Looking around the room again, he grunts. A small laugh. Yeah, this is something else. As his mind cleared, he recounted the past few days. He had been on a camping trip with Bill. They were hiking through the forests of North America, and they had ended up in Canada. Andy could not remember the name of the region they were in. It began with an S, and it made him laugh every time Bill said it. That silly creature of his. Andy remembers Bill going to fish for dinner. They loved fishing, and Andy enjoyed watching Bill prep the fish and fry them. It was like a dance. They would even sing show tunes from movies Andy never heard of, squirting lemon and singing in operatic fashion about Oklahoma or some girl named Mandy needing a minister handy. It was never dull with Bill. They seemed to have an endless wellspring of energy, and Andy thinks that was why they got along. Can't have 2 flames burning. Need one to admire the flame. Andy loved watching them burn so bright. After setting up the tent and hand cranking the batteries so they could listen to some music, Andy started to change clothes to the gym shorts and tank top combo Bill loved so much. Before he could finish getting his shirt on, a loud clap made his ears ring. The second clap made him fall to his knees and his eyes go blurry. The last thing he remembered seeing was Bill on the other side of the campfire, holding the sides of their head like he was. The fish hanging from both hands, seemingly floating up slightly before everything went dark and empty. I wonder how long ago that was. Taking stock of his body and seeing if there were any other bruises or marks past the lumps on his head and the soreness in his right shoulder. His chest scars felt fine. The reduction on them had taken long enough, but his right pec felt sore. There was also a sore spot just about where he remembered cramps. He couldn't account for the feeling. He had a hysterectomy when he turned 18, to the dismay of his dad. His mom was more supportive of the gender-affirming procedure. It had been a long time getting used to how the body felt after, but this was not that. Almost as if he had been punched in one specific spot over days. Checking everything else was fine gave him a moment to relax. No sense of new scars or any internal pains to be concerned with. Laying down on his back on the table, he catches himself drifting. No sleep for you. Sitting up so fast made some of the lights flash and dizzy feeling wash over his head. Okay, none of that. Need to focus. Putting on the backpack, he starts checking the walls and floors for any signs of a seam or a button. Okay, if this was Stargate or some pulp novel, there would be a part of the wall I would touch, and a door would open or a screen would show up. His hands dancing up and down the wall slowly, stone feeling cool with a bit of a static charge. When his hands got above the cube table on the side of the wall, he felt a vibration pressing just above it. The lights in the room shift to a pink as the table in the center begins to light up. The stone he had been laying on now displaying a map in a few colors. As he walks around the table, he sees a symbol that might have been a black clover move slightly around a small rectangle on one side of the map. He moves to the left and then to the right, and the symbol matched him. Okay, I'm here. Where's Bill? The table shines brighter at the other end of the map. A similar room with a pale blue clover symbol. Not moving. Bill! He yells. The flash happens again. The symbol shifts to one side slightly, then still. What the fuck is going on? The table goes dark for a moment. A triangle symbol shows up in the center in dark red. The two clover symbols on the left and right beneath. Two clover symbols on the left and right. That's why we're here. Beneath, a green symbol Andy decided was a hashtag, but not quite. The symbols then started moving around the triangle slowly. The green hashtag blinked off, then appeared next to Andy's symbol, and then it went a pale color. In the center of the triangle, a red X slowly flashes. Well, fuck this, Andy says with a sincere hope that somebody was listening and that this was a joke. Can you hear me? This is not cool. I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not really thrilled with the idea of dying. Trying his best to sound as much like Bruce Willis in Die Hard as he could. The table showed the map again, flashing the green hashtag somewhere in the center of the map. Trying to commit the layout to memory, he sees the word show up above Bill's symbol. Andy, baby, I'm scared. My leg might be broken. I can't see anything. Where are you? What is going on? Oh, you sweet creature. Andy knew Bill was not doing well. They had been through some painful things, from telling their parents they did not want to be thought of as a boy to being chased out of the private school they loved so much. Andy knew he had to get to them fast. They were not going to get it together in this situation. Don't worry, Billy Goat. I'm on the way as soon as I can figure out how to get out. The map began to glow orange and flash. Andy had a sense of a video game starting prompt. The room goes dark, and one of the walls opens just beyond. Andy can see soft lights that match the room. This is not fucking cool. The layout the map suggested was a large sprawl of various angles and blocks that had some relation to an old city or creative table game map. He did not understand some of the symbols, but he was sure all of it was one level, with some areas just higher off the floor. The outer wall looked like what a butterfly described to a blind person might look like, Andy mused. The central tube shape branching out to either side, looping around to get deeper into the central structure that had Bill's cell at the other end. Did that make sense? Andy was not sure if Bill had seen anything or had gotten the idea to stay in the room or what. He could just not sit and let his partner fend for themselves. The first few feet, Andy noticed a thudding hum again and wondered if it was a cruise ship or if they were above a server farm with heavy running cooling units, or what the vibration could be. At the end of the hall was a shelf with what looked like a toy gun. Let's see. So here I had written something about a buckler, but I don't mention it for the rest of the story, so I'm editing that bit out, right? Like, just actively, because first drafts, right? Grabbing the gun. This looks like a clap making a large dent in the wall a few feet away sounded. The recoil throwing Andy off balance. Circle shows on top of the gun with a dot in the center, getting larger as it fills with green color, followed by a 2-pulse vibration in his hand. Fuck, that's not what I expected at all. Looking at the shelf again, he sees a display of the map and a green hashtag making its way from the center to Bill's side. Oh fuck no. Andy wasn't Rambo. He knew that about himself. He did keep in shape and did try to make sure to try as many things as he could to find out what kind of man he wanted to be. One of the things he tried was at a survivalist camp. He hated nearly all of it, from how toxic most of them were to how cute the straight ones were. It would have been better to have just gone to Florida on spring break. What he did like was that they all had show muscles and could not keep up with him. Andy was not worried about the limited capacity for cardio or strength they seemed to have. It was also amazing that the leader of the group and Andy were the only ones that got along, and kept challenging each other to push harder. The map skills in the hide-and-seek game they had in that forest excursion was paying off now for sure. There were a few points where the central section had platforms, Andy assumes. They were a few dozen feet apart. They looked like they had possible line of sight from one another, even if you had to go through the twisting corridors to get to the next platform. He assumed that this was so people could try to shoot the green thing, whatever it was. But if that fucker is a jumper or flies or crawls on walls, shuddering, he makes his way through with a quicker pace. The various films and shows of monsters crawling along a wall played like a music video montage. Okay, calm down, he whispers to himself. The consistent lighting and hum was unnerving. He couldn't be sure how long he had been out of the room. Still wasn't clear how long he had been here. He thought he would have been the first platform by now. Of course, it could only be just a few minutes, and my sense of time could be messed up because head injury. He laughs to himself, then stops as he gets dizzy. Focus, damn it, Bill needs you. After pushing through the wave of disorienting pain, Andy sees stairs leading up to a wire-framed catwalk. Slowly at first, then rapidly when the structure proves stable, he makes his way up the 2 stories of steps. Excuse me. That was, yeah, we won't go into what that tasted like. The platform gives him a view of a straight line to the hallway that leads to Bill. The divisions through the center go almost entirely up the bottom of the catwalk level, the sides of the structure partially obscured by taller walls and some of it brightly lit with different colors. He sees the stairs leading from one side or another on each end of the catwalks in front of him, judging 20 yards between each catwalk, possibly more. This place was much larger than he was expecting. You know, I really hope that made sense. It made sense to me when I wrote it, but like, who the fuck knows? Okay, what did my sister call it? Camping? Kneeling, dropping the backpack in front of him at the other end of the catwalk, one hand holding the gun up, aiming down the path, and the other hand digging into the bag. He pulls out one of the 2 containers. Holding it between his legs, never dropping his aim, opens and scoops the small handfuls into his mouth. Come as you are, as you were, he starts to mumble to one of his favorite songs to himself. But I do have a gun, you fucker. He manages through another mouthful. His arm starts to tire as he holds it on the railing of the catwalk. He knows the path brings everything up to these to get deeper. He knows the hashtag has to. His thoughts snapped to the sound of what could only be horseshoes on metal. There had to be more than 2 or 4 feet, he thought. The sound was sudden. The ringing of the stairs was so loud, and he had to close his eyes. Each step of each footfall felt like a knife stabbing deeper into his eyes and head. He started remembering the focus when lifting weights, the breathing, the focus on remaining calm, not giving in to panic, not letting the weights be in control, not letting the pain stop you getting that next level. Slowly blinking his eyes and aiming, he waits. After an agonizing commercial break worth of time, the green hashtag reaches the catwalk, and he does not want to trust his eyes. He knows he hit his head, but there was something that made him sleep. He could be imagining these features, but it all looked so real. The soft lights of the walls and ceiling were enough to show sort of a head with tiny arms or legs on either side of what might be a neck. 3 giant legs on each side had the impression of being like dog's legs, but had some kind of hoof nails, 2 in front and 1 in back, and the tail end seemed to be armor-plated with 2 more appendages that seemed to clap against the sides as the thing walked. And he couldn't be sure he saw eyes or a mouth on the thing. The front sort of had an alligator triangle shape, but there was more dimension to it than he could make out. His mind was trying to make sense out of all of it. "Fuck you, buddy." Pulling the trigger, the clap of the firearm and the recoil landed him on his ass. The howl yell sound from the creature was human in the same way that some voices in cheap TV shows pitched well below normal would sound. Something artificial or wrong about it. The green circle took forever to fill back up as Andy kept it in sight with the creature as it remained motionless on the other platform. "Come on, you toy-looking piece of..." The vibration came as he aimed and pulled the trigger again. This time, more in control of the recoil, he watched the bolt slam into the armored hind section, making a dent. The wail of the creature still giving wrongness as it echoed through the facility. "You down? You want to talk? Who the fuck are you? Why are we here?" The thought he should have said something first occurs to him, but no, he quickly corrects himself. "We were kidnapped and brought here. You better let me and my partner go or I will fire again." The creature shifts, standing on the back set of thick legs, and turns around, its head showing clearly the dimensions of a horse and a gator. Some 3 or more seams open, revealing a softly glowing teeth, followed by an unsettling sound that Andy assumes is a yelp. It goes down the stairs that it just climbed up, disappearing into the weave of halls. Oh shit. Andy realizes what is going to happen. The thing is now directly focused on him and heading his way. He figures he has a bit of time, as it did not look like the thing would be able to climb walls or fly, or anything movie monsters do. It was built like a tank, made of muscle and hoof-like nails, so that wasn't anything to worry about. Yeah, right. That's not right. That's just not fucking right," Andy repeats to himself. Pulling out some straps, Andy pulls at them, twisting the center around the rails and pulling as hard as he can. That's why we're here. It was lighter than nylon, but it was not as rough. It seemed to be stronger than its appearance gave credit for. The empty container had one end of the strap with a large knot inside, the lid sealed tightly on top. He tested it by wedging it in the railing and pulling as hard as he could. The action needed to open it proved secure. I don't know what I just wrote there, but... "This is a bad idea," he mutters to himself in another voice. "Yes, it's a bad idea, Andy," in his own voice. "Well, Bill, I need to get to you before that horse dragon does," in the other voice again. "Babe, you have big dick energy for days. You can do anything, but this is gonna hurt." In his own voice, "This is gonna fucking suck," is what it's going to do. Between rugby and frisbee, there was never much need to throw anything of any weight a great distance in his experience. He never liked pigskin, b-ball, or any of those sports. What he wouldn't give for a compound bow right now. He would still suck at it, but he could be sure it would go the distance. The first 2 tries had the meme "aww" sound playing in his head, just not quite far enough. Overhand, underhand, nada. Even tried the softball step throwing thing he had seen some of his friends do. Each time, he was sure the canister would either break or something else that would make this a waste of time. After focusing, he thought of spinning it with some of the strap off the side and then letting it fly that way. First, no. Second, close. Third, almost lost the entire strap. The 4th time, it clanged onto the catwalk after wrapping once around the rail. Not sure about this. Checking his shoes and doing a few squats, he does the typical weightlifting huffing. "Get some," he says, and starts laughing for being silly as he jumps. Time moves both slower and faster than normal, but there is enough time to see the problem before he hits the wall. He tries to keep his feet up and in front of him as he hurtles towards the dividing wall. The idea was to be like rock climbing, and just be more extreme about it. No real reference point for being in a strange place with some kind of horse dragon thing coming for you and your partner alone and afraid. The problem was, he was approaching the wall with his back to it. He was never great at math, let alone stuff like terminal velocity, but he knew he was going faster than his ribs would enjoy, and he needed to be sure to hang on. The crunch when he hit the wall was dull and wet sounding. Not full break, but that would be a problem. He did similar when he got into a fight with a guy his first year in college. The testosterone was still leveling in his system, and the occasional anger spikes caught him off guard. This guy accidentally tripped and spilled his beer on Andy. The fight was short. Andy attacked the guy with a wide haymaker of all things. The guy was a boxer, and he ducked the swings and punched on each side of Andy's body once. The second punch, that's when the crack happened. Andy was so embarrassed by the entire exchange. The only saving grace was the guy genuinely felt bad for cracking his ribs. He came to visit Andy in the hospital every day and got the school to not expel him. That was Bill's cousin. One of the strangest ways to meet someone. Get into a fight with their family, then getting invited to a family barbecue. Feeling himself slip slightly, Andy gets mad at himself for not adding knots to the strap. Checking the tension in his hands and arms between the soreness rising in his chest, that was just not great. He wrapped the strap around his hands and around his waist and legs. The circulation was getting pinched sooner than he had thought would happen. No real reference point for this type of thing, he mused. Okay, just don't be broken ribs and let me climb up the strap. Huffing with the extension of each arm as he made his way up, as he made his way, made the pain worse. He tried not to exhale so forcefully. No good. Once at the catwalk and pulling himself onto it, he heard a soft crunch as he raised himself with both arms, letting out a sharp "fuck!" and then falling onto his back with a thud and another expletive. There was a break, and he felt something in his chest was not quite right past that. Thinking about Bill, Andy gets up with white-hot pain blinding him for a moment. Taking off the backpack and digging into it to get a box of milky water, and the gun felt like it was in slow motion. Needed to be ready to shoot the damn thing again if it noticed what he had done. Box in hand, gun in waist, he replaced the backpack, making his way down to the other end of the catwalk. Descending into the hallway, flipping the straw out and taking the entire box in nearly one go, Andy noticed he felt suddenly much better. The pain was not as intense, and he was a bit more focused. There was a soft fog that knocked at his thoughts, and it suggested sleep. No sleep. No sleep. Must get to Bill. The hallways were not a maze or even terribly complicated. They just seemed to be wrapped into a pattern to make getting to each new section as long of a journey as possible. There were marks he could not understand on some of the walls, and then areas that were obviously splattering of some various things. When he started to feel pain again, he quickly grabbed another of the milky waters and sucked it down before he knew what he had done. The automatic action was not even a thought. He just started drinking before he noticed. Ketracel White sure does not taste like I thought it would, laughing to himself for a joke he knew Bill would get. I'm also cuter than an Alpha Quadrant Gem Hadar. The fog of sleep knocked again, and he laughed a bit louder. No! He stumbles, climbing down the third set or fourth set of stairs. He couldn't remember how many catwalks he had walked up and down so far. Have to get to Bill. The cottonmouth was the first sense before lights and klaxons were registering. He had passed out. He must have. A rush of panic gets him moving from the partially seated position. He sees the stairs he must have come down to his right. The backpack opened and emptied out in front of him, the gun a few feet further away than he would have liked. The first steps almost caused him to fall. The feeling of a hangover and the heat in his mouth were not promising. Grabbing the gun first and then collecting the 4 canisters he saw and the 1 box of milky water, he stuffs them all into the bag. He steps on the other container, releasing the smell of alcohol, burning his nose. He moves the backpack out of the way before he vomits. It came through his nose, and he could feel it burn his eyes. There were chunks of what he expected to be the meats. The color was an unnatural red with flecks of yellow and pale blue. The moments after came with a ringing in the head and a reminder that something was not right in his chest. "Bill," he says weakly. I tapped the page turn a little too fast there, so. A clanging sound fills his ears as the klaxon and the throb stop fighting for dominance. It had to be the horse dragon. It must have turned around. Andy wonders if he lost his lead or if he just faded for a moment. He was not doing too well physically, and he could not judge how much time had passed. Could have been a few days so far. Could have been only 10 hours. Time was not a thing humans had a strong grip on. "Get a smartwatch," they said. "You'll be able to take calls on it and glance at it for time references and alarms," they said. He mocks himself, remembering all the times Bill tried to get him to buy a smartwatch. And he didn't want to be that guy that wore a smartwatch like a status symbol. So many toxic dudes and snobby women already had that covered. The soreness in his gut was louder. Not hunger, just like somebody punched him there, like he was steak. The obvious rise in his blood pressure was also something to worry about. He knew he had a concussion, and passing out and puking was not great for that. He knew that much. The clangs of the horse dragon seemed to echo longer and louder. He was not even sure if the gun did much of anything to the beast or if it was just that he hit it in the armored part. "I don't want to get a look at its face again if I can help it," he mutters, quickening his pace. Climbing up a few more catwalks and back down, he began to feel weak again. He didn't want to drink the milk stuff again. He wasn't sure if there was a drug in it or not, but it was obviously not doing him any favors. He could work through the cotton mouth and suck on the meats in the canisters. Opening one of them proved to be very hard. He had to stop walking and hold it between his legs and use an awkward-looking way to move just to get the thing to twist. It made his chest hurt more. The tenderized part of his gut was also angrier. Once open, he dropped it. Most of the contents spilled out with the finer components filtering through the holes that made up the metal catwalk. The meaty chunks remained, and he scooped them into the container, popping one into his dry mouth. He saw he was at the last set of stairs, just beyond the series of halls after going. He saw. That's one of the things about this project that I really like, because, like, you know, when you're first drafting something, you go back all the time and have to, like, restructure and rewrite things. But yeah, looks like my sound recording thing didn't work, so bad audio again. I need a new mic. Anyways. He saw that he was at the last set of stairs, just beyond the series of halls. After going downstairs, he should be with Bill. "Bill!" he tries to yell, hurting himself as he inhales deeply. Gingerly, he slowly inhales again. "Bill, can you hear me, baby?" No sound but the klaxon and the who sounds getting stronger. This was a video game-like decision, he felt. This is when you decide to go save the person or stand your ground to do battle with the boss. Some games didn't even give you that option. Sometimes a gate would prevent you from moving ahead until you defeated the boss creature and you got a key or some mystical thing would allow you to pass. In table games, you dealt with a girl running the game in a way that would often subvert your expectations. Then the movies that would have the boss fight at the end of the journey, with them holding a gun to your friend or lover, serving a speech about how small and weak you were as a person, so the hero needed to give up. Andy was not sure where his story was heading. He just wanted this to be over, whatever all of this was. "Okay, Andy," he says, muttering. "Let us save Bill and see if he has a gun we can double up on this thing, or camp here and shoot its face if it shows up." As he says this, he sees the horse dragon on the other catwalk. Seeing him, it lets out a horrible mix of sounds from its mouth before rising on thick back legs, clapping the four front ones together, making a snap snap sound, the smaller appendages in its face area waving wildly. The gun was pointed in the direction of the beast, and he pulled the trigger before he was sure it would hit. The power of the gun pushed him back, hitting his hand on the rail, causing him to drop the gun in the wall space between the halls. The creature made another sound that carried the feeling of nightmares into Andy's head. There was also a smell of pus and urine. The lights in the entire facility got a little brighter, seemingly in reply to the monster. Andy sees a nub spitting out fluids from the center left leg area. "I shot your fucking leg off, you horse dragon whatever." The rush fueled his running down the stairs to get to Bill. Andy knew it couldn't have been more than a few minutes since he shot the thing. The rush in his body had worn off, and the feeling of sleep was knocking at his thoughts again. He would be with Bill soon, and the gun in his room would protect them both. They could figure out what to do then. The irregular sounds of the hooves, followed by more and more frequent sounds that could only suggest pain and difficulty, gave Andy confidence. If the beast was slowed and in pain, then half the problem might be solved already. The klaxon seemed to get louder as he reached the long hallway that he assumed would be the last bit to Bill. At the end of the hall, he sees a soft light in a slightly darker blue. "Bill!" he yells as he tries his best to run. "Bill, answer me, baby!" No sounds or movements he can make out through the klaxon, just seems to get louder. Nearly tripping on his own feet as he reaches the door and catching himself, Andy leans into the room, scanning over everything. "Bill!" From the other end of the central table, Bill peers out. "Andy? Oh my God, it's Andy!" The thick, even growth on Bill's face made them look less afraid and angrier. They had been crying, with eyes puffy and red. Pulling himself up with both hands after tossing the gun on the table. "Andy, my lovely man," reaching out, his arms limping as he walks around the table slowly. "Bill, my beautiful creature." Moving faster than he should have, closes the distance, grabbing Bill around his torso, Bill wrapping their arms around Andy's shoulders. "Your leg, are you okay?" The milk stuff seems to be a painkiller, and the strap's made for a good brace wrap. He looks over his body as they take a step apart before deeply kissing. "I kept passing out, between the leg not being great to walk on and the effects of the milk. Yeah, I think I have a concussion, and my adrenaline has been taking over mostly." Looking around the room, Andy sees Bill's natural need to make sense of everything had not... Sorry, I just tripped over all of that. Seeing Bill's natural need to make sense of everything in full gear. There was a few broken containers with shards dulled down in dust piles on the floor near the walls beneath maps and formulas. "Baby, I know you're a super nerd about things, but..." "Okay, yes, I've been working on where we are and how long we've been here." Turning to the table, he places his fingers on various spaces, and the display changes to show a map, then a chart, and some kind of icon of Andy and Bill and the creature. Some kind of icons, plural. That's why we're here. "From what I can gather, you and I have some kind of device implanted either behind or in our general area of her pelvic bones," pointing to one series of characters in the chart. "I could also see your condition here in that you passed out, I think, here." He points again. "Hey baby, you're never this put together. What's going on with you? I was worried." Andy puts his hand on Bill's head. "You know, I don't know. It could be the milk, the fact we're in space, or..." "Space?" Bill looks directly into Andy's eyes. "Yes, just like one of those shows we got snagged by aliens or something and put into a mousetrap or whatever it is. How did you figure all this out?" "Well, since I wasn't feeling terribly brave, I played around with the table display when I figured out the walls might have had a thing like Stargate," they say together, both smiling. Then I started messing with this display and it responded to touch and some audio commands like our phones do. Andy blushes. Well, I figured out talking to it. I had no idea why I didn't try to use it like a touchscreen. Oh, I was one box in on the milk before I did that, Bill says flatly. What I did notice is whatever language this is, it has 26 letters and an oddly similar structure to English. Andy twists his face. But that's not likely, is it? We make fun of all those shows and movies. Yes, but I think this is on purpose. Bill moving icons around the table. Best I can figure, we're in this thing, and it's designed for you and me. I think the weird hashtag creature is supposed to be our guard or distraction. I still can't figure that out. Well, if it is a guard, I shot one of its legs off. One of? How many does it have? No descriptions or detailed images, just symbols, like this was an ASCII art interface or something. 6. Look, 6 that look thick and have hooves, 2 in the front and 1 in back on each. Small T-Rex looking things on its face or neck or whatever that is, and 2 similar on the armored hindquarters. Its face looks like some kind of horse alligator. I call it a horse dragon. Bill pauses and has a few false starts before talking. That sounds like something from a wonderfully pulpy novel or something for sure. A loud thud makes both hold on to the table. A second thud shakes harder. Andy looks at Bill, kisses him. Stay right here. I'm going to the end of the hall and see what that might be. Where's your gun? I thought I saw it on the table. Oh, sorry, silly me, Bill says, pointing the gun at Andy. You aren't going to leave me here, are you? Andy looks over Bill and starts to notice the look of fear. No, baby. I'm just going to see if I need to shoot the thing and need to shoot that thing again or not. I'll be right back. Bill starts to cry softly, handing the gun to Andy. Sorry, babe, I'm having a moment here. I was trying to keep it all in and be brave. Andy puts the gun in his waist, takes Bill's face, wiping tears off his cheeks, above the beard, and then kissing him deeply a few times. Baby, this is fine. The milk is strong stuff. I think we might have been sipping on opium or something similar. I will be right back and we can figure out what to do next. Bill nods in agreement, just as another thud makes both shake in place. Andy kisses Bill on the cheek, arms himself, and heads into the hallway. The klaxon now drowning out even the humming Andy was trying to use to calm himself. At the end of the hall, Andy notices something is different. The walls have lowered, all of them. He just saw the catwalk standing there like spiders over empty space and the horse dragon limping slowly in his direction. Bill, we need to figure something out soon. This place is doing something new. Making his way back rapidly, Andy finds himself out of breath with a new pain in his head. He notices Bill holding his head as well. They both fall to the floor. Everything goes dark. A series of thuds bring Andy back to life. A series of thuds brings Andy back to life. Same room. Nothing changed except the door was gone and a window on the opposite wall had appeared. Checking Bill, Andy relaxes, hearing him snore slightly like he did at home. The pain in his chest moving to a stand hard. There was a new heat feeling in his gut. Making his way to the window, interrupted by 2 thuds rapidly from top and bottom, almost making him fall. As he approached the window, his heart sank. Bill, baby, wake up. I can't move much. My whole body is angry with me and my leg feels heavy. I'm sure, baby, but you need to get up. Andy walks over, helps Bill. This just defies reason, and I'm not sure what we're going to do now. Andy, are you okay? Bill looks through the window and gasps. How many do you think? Andy takes a few extra moments to answer than he should have. Looking out of the window, he could see other couples and single people looking through windows in shock and fear just like them. All human, all obviously terrified. Thousands. The word coming out as a loud whisper. There has to be thousands. What is that in the center? Bill points down 15 or more levels. The area looked to Andy to be a field that might be 2 or 3 times larger than a field in a FIFA match. Well, either we're supposed to watch games happen, or we are the games. As the word leaves his mouth, the landscape shifts as one of the other rooms moves out from its position and lowers to the field, the thud sounding making more sense to Andy now. Holding their hand and looking at Bill, Andy wishes they could bring this back as a memory when they got home or wake up from this horrible nightmare. The movement of their room floating down to the field, Andy wondered what all of this was about. The thudding of the room to the field and the door appearing again seemed to give answers as 2 guns dropped from the ceiling onto the central table. And that is Bring It Back, the 3rd installment of First Drafts That Glow. Excuse me. I really hope you enjoyed that story. I might edit that part out. I really hope you enjoyed that story. I really did enjoy writing that one. It was different. I was trying to approach characters differently. I was trying to approach the storytelling differently. I'm really trying to push myself each story that I write to do something different, not just the same thing that I did in the previous one. I really do hope you enjoyed this. I would very much appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, if you could tell your friends about this, even if you don't think this is especially good, you just want to make fun of me. That's cool. I can only get better. And also just to remind you, in the info links, in the info below, there'll be links. Please do visit me at ko-fi.com/nailsthatglow. That's ko-fi.com/nailsthatglow. Also visit me at my website, nailsthatglow.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at firstdraftsglow. Again, the links to 2 additional people will be down there as well. And I want to thank you again for joining me and for giving me a listen and just welcoming me into your life. And silly queer like me, just writing stories and just trying to have fun doing it. And y'all are very beautiful, and I love all of you. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week for First Drafts That Glow.